I'm going out, I gotta go. I'll bang a rang on the radio. So turn it up, I'm telling you. I think I'm ready for something new. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza.
You're listening to Pop Punk and Pizza with Jacques Lamour.
Hello and welcome to Pop Punk and Pizza Podcast. I am, of course, Jacques Lamour, your host, and my guests on this episode have been they've both been on the show before, but appeared in different episodes, different years. One is the guitarist of UK pop punk band A Few Too Many, and the other is a legend in the pop punk scene who's been fronting Bowling for Soup for, I believe, getting close to 30 years now. So you put these two hardworking guys together, and they become Music Networking 101, which is a monthly music industry workshop featuring well-known special guests and keynote speakers. So let's give a big warm welcome back to Danny Freeman and also Jaret Reddick. Hey, guys.
Love that intro. Thank you very much.
Hi.
It's great to have you guys back. I was trying to figure out, Jaret, I don't even know if you remember being on the podcast before, because it was 2019, which feels like 10 years ago already because of this pandemic, you know?
Well, I do because, first of all, pop punk and pizza are, obviously two of my favorite things because one of them I helped create and one of them I devour at will.
That's true.
No, because you're so active in like all the same groups that I'm in and stuff, and you don't meet a lot of Jacques Lamours.
That's true. Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
yeah, man, of course I do. And but yeah, and it's always a pleasure to see you, and thanks for having me and Danny on.
Yeah, of course. And and Danny was just on last year talking about, A Few Too Many. And I think we're almost close to that EP. Is that EP finally being released, right? Or has it been released?
So it's going to be fully released as of next month. At this point, there's only 2 remaining tracks that everybody hasn't heard, because we've kind of we went down the route of like releasing singles and leading up to it. But it's going to be really nice to have the full thing, like as a collective works out there.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we can talk about, because that's kind of it goes into the whole Music Networking 101, because I feel like the focus from the actual sessions, the workshop sessions, the live streams, I've noticed, obviously marketing is a huge topic of discussion. So I'd love to hear eventually on this episode, Danny, how that worked for A Few Too Many, doing like releasing almost every single song on the EP as a single before even releasing the EP, because I know I don't think I've known artists to do that, but I haven't heard like the after like the results of that. Like, hey, did that actually work for you? Was that good, or was it just kind of so
it can be very hit and miss sometimes.
I think it kind of goes back to, our last record, Drunk Dynasty, and, we released a song and then we released another song and then we kind of went away and kind of did other stuff. I mean, we really didn't market that album well, but we kind of just preached to the converted a little bit. And then about a year in, we made a video for the song Catalyst, and every response was like, "You guys got new music out," or whatever. So it just goes to show you like how an album this day and age, you almost are doing the songs a disservice if you're not giving them each their own time. So whether it's you release an album and then you do a video for each song or whatever, or you do it in reverse, or you don't do an album at all. I just think it's the new world we live in of content. And so Bowling for Soup is in a similar situation as those guys, in that we will release our fourth. Let me think about this. Alexa Bliss, Getting Old Sucks, Come with Kindness. Yeah. So our fourth single will come out in February, and then the new album will be out in April. So it's half the record, but we weren't gonna do an album like this. It's because of the pandemic that we even ended up doing that. So I just think the releasing of the singles and then releasing it all as a collection is sort of just the new normal.
Yeah, I feel like it is too. And I feel like that starts all the way at the top in the mainstream and then kind of trickles down because I've noticed that too.
I
as
actually
well.
think it's and not just to disagree.
No,
It
please.
actually started at the bottom, and that and all of these bands that were doing it down here, like on like the commando level, and then it trickled up, and then all of a sudden the Taylor Swifts of the world were like, well, shit, that's working for them in this scope. And so that's what we should be doing, is paying attention to each of these songs. And, you got bands like Blue October who have the same management as us, where I don't think I'm wrong in this. I think they actually released every single song on their album as a single before the album came out. And so, and that's what Danny and I talk about on our show, and our guests talk about so much, you have such direct access to the fans now, and for even like these big artists or whatever to just release an album now, it just doesn't make as much sense these days. If you haven't prepared, if you haven't either released all of the songs or half the songs or whatever, nobody's going to hear half of them,
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think as well, it's like with this TikTok. Do you remember the TikTok trend when it started out and it was mainly unsigned artists at the time releasing a track ahead of actually releasing the track. So the way they do it is they did the whole, my label told me not to leak this song.
Oh,
and
yes.
that started to really build up traction. And then you see all the the bigger label artists obviously take that on board. So I totally agree with Jarrett. It kind of works its way up.
Yeah. Very good point. I mean, it's pretty crazy actually. Because as you said, Bowling for Soup's been together 27 years, almost 28 actually, and going on 30. And for the bulk of my career, I've been asked, well, what should we do about this? And how do we do this? And how do we go about this? And yada, yada, yada. And I find now that I'm learning as much from young bands as they ever learned from me. And that, I'm trying to navigate this new world that we're in just the same. I come from I grew up in the 80s where bands just made songs and then they made videos and then they went on tour and that was it. And now, I literally I swear to God, this is true. I literally just texted my band and said, I need each of you to make a 15-second video introducing me to your dog so that I can put it on social media.
Amazing.
That's the scope of the changes. But
yeah,
all of that starts at the bottom level, and all of these dudes and dudettes or whatever, all of these people out there trying to just get noticed, do this, to make a viral video, to, whatever. And it's just that that those of us who, have evolved through all of this into the different areas of it are having to just keep up.
Yeah, I view it very much like how I look at technology. It's changing so quickly now. Like the landscape is constantly changing. You've got new trends literally every day. If not every week, then literally that next day there's a new trend, and you've just got to be paying attention to it 24/7 to be able to take advantage of it, and then to view it and sort of look and see, right, well, how can we jump on this kind of trend but make it personal to our brand and our band, and try and make it relatable for our followers.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of brings me to I recorded a podcast last night where I was actually the guest on a podcast instead of me hosting the podcast. And they asked me a question that I was thinking, this would be a good question for both Danny and Jarrett. And that the question was pretty much asking me, this day and age, is it it's almost like, is it harder to be a songwriter with all of these distractions, or what's more important? Is it writing songs or creating all this content online? It's almost like I guess it's a balancing act like anything else, but um, I mean, I still feel like the songs should still come first and
Mm.
everything else come after it, but I don't know if that's really actually the ideology or ideology out I can't talk ideology
Yeah.
that how do you guys feel about that, because you've got to manage so many different things now, probably versus, and Jarrett, you can attest to this, I mean, when you first started out, are you managing more things now than you were then?
Yeah, I mean, I look the when we first started out, the big things were, that obviously we didn't have cell phones, so you did everything on pay phones, and we had a an atlas, and you found things on a map is how you found your way around, and answering machines was how you did business. Those were sort of the things. But yeah, it's a completely different world. I mean, it's a different world in that, like, from every aspect, really. There's just way more to it. I mean, if you look at my TikTok from what I had posted yesterday, I literally was like, I was singing in the studio, and I had to try to remember, like, each time to at least get a segment of me singing each song in anticipation of a TikTok video that I was going to do, right? That's not something you ever thought about back then. The idea was to get in there and get the best performance. So,
Yep.
If you think about it, like, so even recording or writing, sometimes it's not even getting 100% of my attention anymore, So yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's like, I always say this, I'm jealous of Nikki Sixx because, well, then I think about it, I don't know, but it's like, he got to write songs and play in a band, and that's what he did. But then again, he was doing the same shit we're doing. It was just on a different level. He was, they were hiring a limo to take Motley Crue to their first show. They were constantly, like, creating their own pyro and lights and things like that that we sort of take for granted now. We don't have to work on, but I have to take a picture of my breakfast and post it, or else I'm going to lose all my followers, So I like to think that it's about songs, but if I'm being completely honest, and y'all don't have to agree with me on this, very seldom in the history of music has it just been about the song. It happens. I think, Owl City, there's a great example of a song that blew up so big and the guy didn't even have a band, like that's about the song,
Yeah.
But the Beatles, it's not just the songs,
No.
it's what they created. It's Black Sabbath, it's not like that. And that just keeps going and going and going, right? It's not just, it's being able to do a live show, to be able to do interviews or not do interviews, like however that balance is and which one works for you, that kind of thing. So I'll let Danny add to it, but I just am sort of on the side, like, hits don't grow on trees. That's for sure. That has to be a factor. The song has to be a factor, but I think there's always a lot to it. There's to make a song, really fucking work.
Yeah. I have, I guess, what you would call a love-hate relationship with the social media world. I mean, in my day job, I work in marketing, so I do love it outside, inside, outside of work. You have to on a level to, to kind of be in that world, and it's kind of, I get the aspects of the positivity and the negativity. So there's a lot that you can come across in social media that can be quite draining. Obviously, there is a lot of negativity out there, as much as there is a lot of positive comments and there's a lot of community spirit. Obviously, you do get the trolls, and you do get the people trying to bring you down. And, obviously, you have to kind of, try your best personally to rise above that or ignore it. But obviously, that's more difficult for some people than it is for others. For me, it's been a learning curve. That stuff really used to personally get to me a lot. And as time's gone by, I've learned to, to sort of focus on what I'm doing and just focus on that and trust in that, and the process. But it is a process. That didn't happen overnight. And obviously you've got filters and things like that out there which people now use, and then they think they want to make themselves look like a filter, and I think that's quite a dark side of social media. I've heard that from a few people, but equally, the amount of community that I've discovered since I've been on social media is insane. If you range all the way back to MySpace, when you would add people as a friend, and you'd have your MySpace top 10 and all of that kind of business. And now it's Facebook and it's Facebook groups. And, I'd like to reference the Alternative Music Networking group, because I've met some amazing people in there. And, that's everybody from DJs to tour managers to band managers to Jaret even. So it's the amount of community that's out there. That side of it weighs through a lot heavier for me than the negative side. But in terms of how it affects the songwriting process for me, it can be quite distracting, and I do have to be very disciplined. And initially that balance was kind of hard to find, and especially with new platforms coming out all the time, you really have to sort of sit there and kind of plan out your week.
Yeah.
I just wonder, I always just wonder how much it actually is hindering the next generation of artists coming up. Like it can be hindering, but it's also very helpful as well. But I guess I just mean like their actual art, something that people are going to grasp onto forever. It's just like we grasp onto records that we heard for the first time when we were 14, like they've become classics, and we hold them very near and dear to our heart.
Yeah.
But it's like, are those things being created these days because of all of these distractions and things that we have to do? We have to do TikTok, we have to do, all that stuff. So it's like,
I think that really the thing that hinders what you're talking about more than anything is attention span. But I mean, there's still songs that are coming out that are, for example, I think Old Town Road in 20 years, people will still listen to that song and go, oh man, this is that thing that happened. So it still happens.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And also, I think that, like, depending on where we are, like, for example, my son, Jack, was so big into Juice WRLD. Like, that's probably always going to be a part of his life, know. But I think, like, the amount of them, and, like, this is an interesting thing, because it still occurs in different kinds of music. And, but arena bands, for example, like, I mean, when I was a kid, you had most of the bands that I listened to, or not listened to, not most of the bands that I listened to, but many of the bands that I listened to in hair metal played arenas, I don't know, I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't really know many bands in my genre that could fill an arena unless they team up. I mean, there's 5 or 6 of them, but maybe not even that. I mean, it depends on how loosely you define the genre.
Yeah.
But how many U2s are going to happen again, or Madonna, or if you think back to like the 80s, the 90s, you had Whitney Houston and Madonna and all of these, like, is crazy. Just these huge music stars. Is that gonna be a thing? I mean, we have Billie Eilish.
Yeah, we do.
I mean,
she does arenas. I mean,
and she's fucking talented as shit. I mean, and Lady Gaga's not done, doing her legacy at all.
Yeah.
So they do exist. I just don't know if they exist in the capacity. And I think a lot of it is going to come down to them. And, well, shit. I mean, do you get any bigger than Taylor Swift, really? I mean, I don't know.
Sure. No, I don't think this day and age. I don't think you do. I don't think there's anything beyond Taylor.
I don't think so. I mean, she did us all a favor, by the way. This is a little bit off topic, but when we did our first greatest hits, songs people actually like, Volume 1 for Bowling for Soup, we re-recorded all the songs.
Okay.
And when we were marketing that, we had to make the decision of like, people are going to ask us why we're doing this. And I was like, I don't feel like we can say we want to own our own masters, because I feel like it at that point, it sounded like a money grab. It sounded like, because people would be like, well, you don't have enough money, because that's the big thing. People think we're rich and famous. And I'm like, no, I'm just famous as shit. I have to work. But now Taylor Swift has done this thing where she's done this favor for us. And I'm like, I want to go back and record all of those Jive records, like, why wouldn't I? That it's in the world where she went and did this and people are like, you should own your own shit. Well, fuck, then I want to own my own shit now.
Yeah.
And so we're literally, it's being planned right now for us to go record the big 3 Bowling for Soup records.
That's awesome.
Again.
That's amazing.
And we're finishing our second greatest hits now, all re-recorded. And, so anyway, that's just a shout out to Taylor. I actually haven't put that into the world yet. And I just have been excited about saying it.
Well, I'm glad you said it on Pop Punk and Pizza. Thanks for
Definitely.
that. But I
totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that practice actually has been going on for some time now, but I completely agree with you, Jaret. Thank God Taylor Swift made it, I guess, acceptable. I don't know if that's because I feel like people did kind of think, oh, well, why would you want to do that? Or they just kind of have this not always a negative look at it, because your true diehard fans are totally supporting you.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I know Real Big Fish did some stuff like that too. And
same label, by the way.
Right. I was going to say same situation.
Yeah.
So, it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
And from a fan's perspective too, though, and I see where, it's okay to hold those first recordings near and dear. Like, they're always going to exist. They're always going to be out there. But, for that person that's just like, hey, I just want to blast these songs. Well, here's re-records of these things. They're sonically way fucking better, and I still sound exactly the same, if not better, if I don't,
I would think better at this point. I feel like an artist 27 years in sounds much better than they were halfway in.
I mean,
matured like a fine wine.
That's right. Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, it's just one of those things where I think she did the artists that have that catalog that has been sitting there for 20 years that we have no control over. And understand, it's not just the money. It's just the fact that they get movies go to them. And again, that you get paid for this, but still it's fucking cool to be in movies. But people go to them and they're like, hey, we want this song in our movies. And it's a $20,000 thing. Well, to Sony, they're like, I don't have time to fuck with that. It would cost me more to make the law. So no. So it's like we're missing syncs on all of those huge songs.
Yeah.
And we've been exactly. And we've been off that label since 2009. So imagine what they've said no to or ignored. Plus, it's confusing to even find out how to contact them because it's been 3 labels since Jive. So
yeah, because someone else is always buying another label's catalog because the label will go under or they just want to get rid of it or whatever the case may be. So I know someone who was recently trying to get licensed for a bunch of different songs had a hell of a time trying to find out who the fuck owns that property. Yeah.
It's pretty easy to find the writer, and to go from the publishing side, it's fairly easy, but just trying to find out who owns the master now, man, can be, again, it's grueling. And sometimes, if I'm a music supervisor and I'm like, well, shit, I know who did this song over here, I'll just go and do this. So there's just a lot of aspects to the whole, owning your own, I can't, something really fucked up. One of my managers didn't know this until the other day. And I think this is really going to surprise people, but we can't post our own songs on our Facebook page. because we don't have the rights. So I can't post Almost or 1985 or High School Never Ends or any of that on Facebook. I'll get taken down because of copyright.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
That's pretty fucked.
So
That's
I used to see
disgusting.
I used to see on the Bowling for Soup page those songs get posted all the time, like a YouTube link. Can you
Yeah.
do that, or does that
We
get
can
taken
post
down?
a YouTube link. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can
But,
do
like,
that, but you can't like actually post like a snippet of the
So
song.
like
or
I couldn't be doing a thing like right now. I
Mhm.
couldn't just the same as you can't play clips of music on your thing. So like
yeah,
when we were doing like our tour videos and stuff, I'd have music playing in the background. Well, I can't do that anymore. I can't have I can't have any of the hits unless we re-recorded it, which we're getting close now.
doing
But,
yeah.
yeah.
The thought
Yeah.
of being an artist and getting a strike down is just
Yeah, it's pretty
just
nuts.
That's the man at work,
It's
right?
pretty
Against
crazy.
against the artist. Yeah.
But you don't
Um,
think about that, right? As a fan, you wouldn't think, you wouldn't
No.
think about that. And just because we've been on our own since 2009, we don't have those rights.
Yeah.
So, pretty weird.
You
Yeah.
guys mentioned Motley Crue as well, and I don't know if either of you have watched The Dirt.
Yeah.
but
No,
one
I
of the
never
things
saw
that-
it.
Oh, great movie! You have to watch it.
That's what everyone tells me.
Yeah, it's great.
You should. But there was one bit that like really stuck out to me at the end, and I think it's where they're just about to play their reunion show, and they go over to their label exec, and he's like, "You finally have the rights back to your music," and we're talking like the years down into their career, and they finally just got the rights back to their own music, and
Yeah.
it's just I don't think people realize that is really what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
No,
I have
I don't
zero
think so.
control over all those hits. Like I can somebody can be like, "Hey, we want to put this here. We want to use this here. We, whatever." And also, I'll tell you something even more fucked up. If they decide they want to, I can't stop them.
Yes, I was just gonna say if they use a song with a certain organization or
Yeah.
movie or whatever, and you're like, no,
They
like
could
I don't like that.
they could
It-
okay it for a politician that I don't support. They could put it in a porno movie if they want to,
Yeah,
and that
Yeah.
might affect my day job,
right, exactly. So,
Mm.
my God.
Yeah.
Well, to get back to music networking 101, there's so many great things to talk about, and that's what I love about both of you. I want to know, how did you two meet? Did you actually meet in the Facebook group, Danny, that you originally started, or did you guys
did.
actually meet face to face at like a Bowling for Soup show? Or
No, so we met in the alternative previously pop punk networking group.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Jarrett to have him on the podcast that I was running at the time.
That's
called
right.
The Pop Punk Catch Up. And then after that, we just carried on talking, and the rest is history, as
Danny
they say.
showed me StreamYard,
Yeah.
and now all of my podcasts are done on StreamYard. And then I was just like, this dude showed me StreamYard. We got to do something else together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
So
here
you're
we
just
are.
like I'm gonna be friends with this dude. Like
I
he's
do
got
have to- I
knows
have
his
to-
shit.
I have to tell you, I do have to be honest. Danny is he's a workhorse, man. He is. It's fascinating to me how quickly he moves, and like I had this idea that we'll be launching pretty soon, and I just like sent him a paragraph about the idea, and it's already fucking happening. Like we're like, in fact, I'm so behind. Like he's like, well, I need you to do this and this and this to get this thing off the ground. He's like, here's this other thing that we're doing, and this, and it's just, so it's refreshing because I think I'm a bit scattered these days. I have so many, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and then I've got 3 kids and a wife who actually likes me. So,
That's nice though.
time can get a little bit, and I'm writing. Well, we have new Bowling for Soup. I have a solo record coming out in about a month.
Oh, nice.
So much happening. Anyway, it's not. Danny reminds me so much of me, in that it's like, well, if we're gonna fucking do this, let's go. Go big or go home. And so it's been really fun, and we're really finding our groove, I think, on on the show itself. We're going to be launching it as a podcast soon, which is great because, a lot of people can't, like for me, I don't ever sit down and watch anything. Like if you ever ask me if I've seen a video, the answer is no. You're going to have to show it to me. Like I don't sit and watch shit. So putting it in people's cars, putting it, in their exercise rooms and things like that for the podcast, I think is going to just help us to grow and to continue to get bigger guests, to continue to get the word out there. And, eventually we'll be soon, we will be launching the careers of other bands. And
nice.
It should be fun.
That's awesome.
I love really, really stoked on all of that. And it became very apparent when me and Jarrett started talking to each other that we just were very much on the same page. I think we're kindred spirits, basically.
I agree. Plus, my brother's name is Danny, so I've heard.
There you go.
I've heard Danny and Jarrett my entire life, so it's just natural.
It just goes together. It's like it's like peanut butter and jelly, or pepperoni and cheese.
There you go.
Delicious.
By the way, I said peanut butter and jelly in a song one time, and I actually changed it to peanut butter and jam because half of my audience is from the United Kingdom, and jelly over there is Jello.
That's right.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I had that conversation with somebody the other day, and they were getting very frustrated with me, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
Like Paddington, like the bear, isn't it? What is that jam or what is that? He's always eating? It's not jam. It's something else.
He eats marzipan. I believe.
That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
It's something with an M. You're right.
It starts with it's orange flavored something.
Marmalade.
Marmalade. That's
marmalade.
That's what it is. I knew it was. Yeah. But so is marmalade different than jam then, or is it the same thing?
They are different over there.
Marmalade is like a thick, like honey texture thing, right? And it's flavored. It's got like orange rind in it or some shit. Like the cup, like I've been down this rabbit hole with my kids.
I'm a terrible Brit on that front because I don't eat.
I guess that's why I was. Yeah, that's why I was asking you because I'm like, well, you're obviously right. You're there. You're born and raised there. So I was like, he's got to know. Hey, that's okay. There's things that I'm trying to think of. I know there's things that I'm not like well versed in. I guess to be like super specific, like, I'm near Chicago, and one of the big food things in Chicago is like the Chicago style hot dog. Well, like I can't really tell you much about it because I've never had one because I don't really not that big into like I'll eat a hot dog, but I'm not like put everything on earth on a hot dog and feed it to me. Like
it's essentially hamburger toppings on a hot dog. That's what the Chicago thing is. But it's also like there's a bunch that goes into it. It's like it's too much for me too. I like to me it's just I don't like foods that are complicated. Like I don't feel like peel and eat shrimp to me is just that's work. And like anything to where like I like I don't know, Danny, if you know what sloppy joes are, but like anything that's like
I've heard the expression
super messy, I eat with a knife and a fork, man. Like
I do too.
I don't like getting things on me, or on my hands and shit. So
oh my god, if my girlfriend was in the room right now, she'd be like, "You're literally the same." Because I will not touch anything. I hate getting stuff on my hands. I
hate getting anything on my hands. I go wash. Like if I pet a dog, I can if it's not my own dog, I can literally feel that dog on my hand until I wash my hands. Like, I don't. I like. It's like here's another one. So like sunscreen. I don't like to put it on myself. My wife puts it on me because I don't like to have it on my hands.
Oh yes, because then it stays there and like you touch your eye and then like your eye is burning.
Yeah.
I
don't want that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's so oily as well.
Yeah, I don't like that shit.
Yes, that as well. But talking about Music Networking 101, I was just I was watching the most recent one that had Thomas Nicholas and then Kyle D. And Jared, actually, you just mentioned this just a little bit ago about Bowling for Soup signing up with Adam as Ramey,
Adam
right?
Ramey,
of Push Digital Marketing. and that fascinated me because I'm always trying to learn or hear new things about ways to market whatever it is that you're, marketing. So what was the what things have you learned from Adam that
Yeah.
kind of turned you around, and you're like, oh, like,
Yeah. Well, I will be honest. We literally just started before this episode that we're doing right now. We had our first call. So I'm learning a lot about things though. Like I'm learning, honestly, I didn't realize like how good my TikTok is doing. I had no idea that like my numbers were good, and he's stoked. But like, one of the things is like, if you do a video on TikTok and it doesn't do as well, then take it back, maybe change the cover photo, change the music that's behind it, change, the captions that you use, and then try it again. Because a lot of times it just didn't hit the right way, which I actually should have learned that on Rockstar Dad Show, because we had a guest that told me that at one point, but it just kind of didn't sink in. And I guess it's because I'm just now getting into it. But, I'm learning about Discord, which I really just didn't know how that worked as far as like from a band standpoint is concerned. We're really, really working to, we actually already knew this, but our Instagram sort of comes across as being just an infomercial at times. Like it's basically like, here's a show, here's a shirt, here's this. And we just haven't done our job in making that a place to come and like see things about the band. And so we're taking care of that too. And then, but the other stuff that he's getting, that Adam as a marketer is getting into, is all stuff that we just, e-commerce is really complicated. Facebook ads are probably the most complicated thing on the planet right now.
Aren't they really? Like actually doing a legitimate Facebook ad, not like boosting a post,
Right.
but like actually doing an ad campaign. I recently tried to experiment with some of that too for the podcast, and I'm like, whoa, it was just overwhelming.
Yeah,
Exactly. And the
But
thing with that
it's-
is if you don't get the targeting exactly right, then
you've just blown your money. And
Yeah.
it's such a complex thing. And in fact, what's funny is she actually just texted me, but my friend Tracy from the oh god, what the fuck is her podcast name? Teen Mom Trash Talk podcast, because I watch Teen Mom, so I've gotten
Nice.
I've gotten to be really good friends with Tracy, who does, her and Noel do this podcast. So if you watch Teen Mom, download Teen Mom Trash Talk, because they're great. But yeah, she says that like Facebook ads are pretty much her full-time job now. Like she spends, hours a day on just getting those ads right and all of that. And so, it will be nice to have someone who knows what they're doing to at least get us, maybe skip a few steps of the learning curve. But that's kind of like where he, really what sold me on him was the getting everything to jive together. That was where he got me is that, a lot of most artists are like this now, right? You've got this little pile over here at Instagram, and then here's these people over here in Facebook, and here's people over here in TikTok, and then you've got people who have bought something from your store, or and there's all of this information. We still have the old email list that we've been collecting for 25 years, whatever, all of these pieces of information and ways to communicate with people. But how do you connect? They're all different demographics, they're all different interests and all of that, but there's ways to do that. I just think sometimes you need to bring in a professional to help you along with it. But the guy is just again, I learned so much on our episode that we did with him.
Yeah.
So by all means, everybody go watch that episode. It's on our Facebook page. But just hearing him rattle off all that stuff, right? They can just download it, or they can go watch them anytime, right, Danny?
Yeah, that's right. They can, and they definitely should, because the amount of knowledge in that episode is just
Yeah, it's great. I mean, honestly, we could do another hour with him because he's kind of like me. He talks really fast. It's hard to get a word in with him. But me and him together, it's a whole thing. Like, I don't think there were 3 other people on the call, but I forgot they were there.
Well, I mean, it sounds like he's like you. He just has a wealth of knowledge and a lot of different experiences. So
The difference is most of the shit I say is my opinion. He's actually spouting. I'm kidding, but the guy's so knowledgeable. But there's those guys are up, and the cool thing about push marketing is that they have, they help all. It doesn't matter what level you're at. They have a way to be able to help you out, and whatever. And there's other, obviously there's other companies out there like that. But I was very happy that Danny brought Adam onto the show because, we just connected really well, and he's a great addition to the Bowling for Soup team.
yeah. Danny, have you personally taken any of Adam's tips and started using them and seen results from it?
I would say that I certainly took on board a lot of what he said, but in the same way that that Jaret just mentioned, I think if I'm just going to implement some of that stuff, because I don't have all of the the background pieces there that he does, certainly I would be looking to to sort of work with him in the future to really sort of bring the best of that out. I can certainly take on board some of the comments with TikTok and building up some of our platforms there. But I think especially, like you guys say about Facebook advertising and running campaigns, if you don't have that targeting knowledge there and you end up targeting it all wrong, then that money's just gone down the drain. And obviously that could have been better spent elsewhere. So if you've got somebody on board who really knows what they're doing with that, then obviously you want to utilize that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I've been learning from experts recently that just boosting a post is almost like a big waste of money. It's all about actually building an ad campaign through the Facebook business or marketing. I forget, or ad manager. I forget exactly which it's called, and that's where all that complicated stuff comes in. But yeah, I'm reading more and more that just boosting a post for $20 is just a waste. It's you may as well take that 20 and wipe your ass with it.
If you don't, if the targeting isn't there, it is obviously if you have the targeting all right, then you're going to hit your demographic. But
right,
that's such niche information. I very much cut my teeth in the world of organic social, so that to me is sometimes like trying to read Latin. It's very difficult. But I'm all about community, and I try and do things as organically as possible on minimal or even zero spend, and just try and get as much done that way as possible. And that's the way I've kind of always done. That's how the Alternative Music Networking group came about, and that's kind of where my my side of things lies. So that the paid side is a jungle. And if you don't have somebody who's got a machete to cut their way through that jungle for you, then it's hard to get through.
But it's when you do learn to do it, the Dolly Rots, they have it down to a science, and it's crazy. They can, Lewis he can put a certain amount of money into an ad, and then he can tell you exactly how many merch pieces that sold them, or this and this, and why that made sense to do that. And then even Linus Hollywood, who's in the band Able Machines, that their demographic is way different than the kinds of music that he's been in the past, and so he's sort of learning that demographic, but he's got it down to where they know who their targets are. They can go straight to them. They know how many Spotify listens that led to, and all of this. So you can see where your money's going. That's the one good thing about getting into all of it. But as Danny said, and as you said, Jock, that if you don't know what you're doing, you might as well be fucking, playing a slot machine, because it might work.
It's a lottery. Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely boosted posts in the past. and it's worked, but it's also been a bit since I've done that. And because I don't do that anymore, my manager does it. But I could definitely see when it worked and when it didn't, but there's no rhyme or, I'd be like, I'm going to advertise this to people that like good Charlotte and Chipotle, like that's got to hit some people that like bowling for soup, like, yeah.
And the funny thing is, look, sometimes Facebook thinks that they're being really helpful. They'll bring in things like, I did do a boosted post, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and when I was trying to set it up, it had like smart targeting as an option that you could click. And you would think that if you tick that, it's going to, try and target people who like bands that are similar to yours and are interested in similar things. And no, it came up with like ridiculous things. It had like Adidas on there and some other companies. I was just like, what? This doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, man, I got to tell you guys, Jacques, you asked me this. You just asked us this, and I didn't think about this answer. But I did learn something from Adam today about Instagram, and I think everybody I think everybody that is watching or listening will benefit from this, because I just didn't think about it like this. But the Instagram, for example, their goal really isn't at the end of the day to squash all of our information and to keep us from people. It's to make the user experience a good experience so that the user keeps coming back. So I just said that the Bowling for Soup feed is a lot of like t-shirt, tour, whatever. Well, people don't want to just see that over and over and over again. And I know that, which is why we're adjusting things. But it goes deeper than that. So he's like, look, if you say you put out a picture of the beach, this is how he put it. And it was like, I don't know, maybe it won't be as mind-bending to you guys, but he goes, if you put a picture of the beach and you hashtag beach and sand and palm trees, whatever, well, the algorithm can see, okay, well, there's sand in here and there's trees and there's water, so this is a beach. So it goes out into the world, and like people who like beaches can see this. But if on that post you put forest, it looks at it and goes, well, this isn't a fucking forest. And so it just takes you and squashes you down, the least people that can see you. And it just made so much sense. Like because sometimes I'm just trying to be funny and I'll put boobs or fart in a post in hashtags, and I'm probably fucking myself, because even though I got a good laugh out of it, like one or two people were like, wait, there's not a fart in here. It's probably, and obviously that's a stupid analogy, but I really do that.
We know how much you love farts, Jared.
I like both of them,
There's nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, anyway, that's just not a way that I had ever thought about it. That like really in all of this, no matter how evil, all of us think that these companies are from keeping our content from the people who obviously want to see everything that there's, however many people they signed up for this, they should see everything. They obviously know what they're doing, because the things are hanging on, and it makes sense to me. Like that, if they are searching for something, that's what they should see.
So, for example, would it be like, let's say we're talking about a tour, okay? Mm-hmm. So let's say your first post is like the actual like tour poster or whatever. Mm-hmm. And let's say posts after that are about the tour, they wouldn't be like, you wouldn't keep posting that tour like poster over and over. You would be posting like, or maybe like a short video of you at practice, right?
Yeah. And then at the end of it, you'd go, and we're practicing because of this shit, kind of thing. Yeah. That's just it. Like, I think we're again, as a band, and I'll point out our shortcomings so that maybe people can learn from this. And but again, we've the band's page is in the habit of posting what's going on. And people are just like, okay, we've already seen that, whatever. So, that's just it. You have to sprinkle in other things that engage, Again, it's like we talked about the very first of this interview. It's not enough just to write a good song. That's not what this job is anymore,
People
Yeah.
want to see the behind the scenes, the real stuff of
They
you
wanna
guys hanging
know-
out.
Yeah, 100%. They want to know you, and they want to know, again, what you like. I said, if you follow Bowling for Soup on Instagram, we're gonna introduce you to our dogs this week.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's more of a, I guess, an entertaining piece. There's more substance to that than just posting about the same, stuff of tour, merch, new
Yeah.
album, new song.
I
Right.
guess what's interesting about the that hashtag comment as well is that there's a lot of bands that I see on Instagram who will hashtag when they put a post up, they'll literally hashtag every other band in the genre that they think that they might sound
Yeah.
like.
Yes.
And going off of that logic, then because none of those bands obviously are in that post,
No.
then the algorithm's going nope,
Yeah.
and
So
then hiding it.
yeah, the bulk. So I actually follow the Bowling for Soup hashtag. So I see those, and I'm always like, what does this have to do with us? And so I used to like them all, but I don't anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it would seem like that would be the answer to that, of like, oh, he also told me this, that if you continue to use the same hashtags over and over, then and especially if you're misusing. So like, let's say like in all of my posts, I just start putting, Good Charlotte in there. Cause I think that people who like Good Charlotte would like Bowling for Soup.
Yeah.
Should I have switched bands? Okay, Sum 41. And so either way, eventually it will catch on and just go, no, you're just overusing this and you're not doing that. So the thing is fairly smart. I think the idea is to post about or to hashtag what you're posting about, and and what other people who are posting things like that are hashtagging, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
just turned into our show, Danny.
What? Sorry.
This is Music Networking 101 on the Pop Punk and Pizza podcast.
That's the whole point, right? These are the types of things people can learn from, either whatever it is that you have planned beyond the monthly, streams that people can learn from Music 101, and that's why I wanted to get into these things with you guys.
I'm kidding, and I do appreciate that. I really do. I think, it's funny. We started doing this, and I was just, I actually try not to work on Saturdays, but we do our show a bunch on Saturdays.
Sure.
And at first I was like, man, I don't know, but I get so much out of it, and I just know from comments of other people getting so much out of it that I'm just like, yeah, I'm in full-fledged now, obviously. But it's just such a cool thing to be able to connect and for people to answer questions, and we're making friends, and as Danny said, some of the coolest people you'll ever meet are there in the Facebook group and on the alternative music networking group that he has. But yeah, man, it's super fun.
I agree. I really enjoyed the latest episode with Thomas Nicholas and Kyle D. I had no idea.
Awesome,
I had no idea Thomas had a band with like his name in it. I had no idea they were, that kind of pop punk or pop rock, influence. I had no idea until you guys had Thomas on Music Networking 101.
I don't think a lot of people do. I mean, I think his band does pretty good, but like we talked about on the thing, he's trying to navigate that whole thing where, he's in this, and you guys can go download or go watch the show and hear him talk about this, but he's just marketed as the guy from American Pie,
which
or
does him
Rookie
a
of the
total
Year.
disservice because he's so much more than that.
He is so much more than that, and he's just like, man, marketed as this, and then like put the information in there, but it seems like he's kind of got it figured out, and I know the UK's been good to him, and we had him here at on Jaret Goes to the Movies, and it was great. So talented guy, man, and like one of the coolest people I've ever met for sure.
Yeah, he seems super chill, super down to earth.
Great guy.
And I was listening after I literally stopped watching the episode that he was on with you guys. I paused it and I went to Spotify to start listening because I'm like, okay, what does his music sound like? You
Yeah.
know, and it
Yeah.
sounds like some of the I can't remember which song. I think it was My Generation I listened to first, and I thought maybe it was a cover. But I don't think it was a cover. I think it was actually an original. And I skipped around a couple other songs. I'm like, okay, like this is actually something I would listen to. This is kind of like what you would expect from the actor who was in American Pie. Like it kind of, I don't know. That was my take on it. But you know,
Yeah, it was cool to talk about, the movies of that time and what they did for the genre. I mean, that particular movie had so many pop punk songs in it, but obviously Blink 182 in the movie,
yeah,
huge. Huge for what we're what Danny and I are continuing to do musically these days. Those movies are super. I mentioned like that movie Angus that had the Green Day song in it, and
yes,
Yeah.
that was Brain Stew, right? Was it Brain Stew that was in
No,
Angus?
well, they actually had an original that was just for that movie, and I cannot think of the name of that song. It might be called Angus. I can't remember, but it's great, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Those movies.
Oh, it was
just,
JAR.
JAR. That's right.
That's right.
Those
And do
movies
you know he
really
wrote
shaped
that?
it.
Do you know the story about that song? He wanted to write a song that sounded like Blink 182.
Well, no, wasn't it the other way around?
Oh, it is the other way around.
Yeah, and I didn't know that either until I was listening to Chris DeMank's podcast.
That's right. Okay, I didn't listen to that episode. That's why I just fucked it up.
And I think the reason why I didn't know that is because for the longest time, I didn't realize that JAR was so old. Because, in my mind, JAR, when I first heard it, it came out on Green Day's first, like, greatest hits album, which was, like, the early 2000s, right? And Blink's What's My Age Again obviously came out before that. So I always thought, well, wait a minute, what? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But then, I learned that, JAR actually goes back to the mid 90s. And I was like, oh, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just so cool because I loved that story because I feel like Blink 182 fans and Green Day fans are constantly butting heads like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, would you look at that? Mark Hoppus was influenced by, Mike Dirnt and Green Day. Take that.
Make no mistake. Make no mistake. All of us were. And any of us that say we weren't is fucking lying. Like we 100%, all of us got that shit when it bootleg tapes or 7 inches in 88, 89, 90, those of all of us dinosaurs fucking had that shit and 100% influenced by it too. Like we all knew that band. Like it's everybody in this, in my generation of pop punk, when Dookie came out, it was not the first we heard of Green Day. We had been listening to them for years.
Yeah.
It's many of us were young and got pissed because everybody else started to like our band, and I call that Green Day disease.
Yes.
And I wrote a whole essay on it. But I don't believe in that anymore. I believe you should, like what you like, and hopefully people are getting cooler about that. But yeah, 100%. I mean, I know that Billy Joe doesn't like to think of them as pop punk. So if they're not, that's fine, but they definitely influenced it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And those movies, that whole franchise has just like soundtracked a whole generation. I mean,
Sure.
It's crazy because I can remember watching those movies when they first came out like it was yesterday. And yet I went into a department store the other day and they had a Dad Rock CD in there and it had Blink and Sum 41 and Green Day. And I wanted to die for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's like
wow.
There's I'm forgetting the name of the rock station now, but there's a newer rock station in Chicago. And what's weird to me is you're listening to the station. If you listen in, like, let's say you listen for 30 minutes in that 30 minutes, you'll hear Guns N' Roses and then Blink-182, and then you'll hear like, I don't know, maybe Boston or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then you'll hear, well, maybe that's a little too far. Metallica. Okay, you'll hear Metallica, and
Yeah.
then you'll hear Green Day, and then it's just so weird, like hearing the pop punk bands mixed in with those other ones. But I think it just goes to what Dan is saying, is because, well, I'm a dad. I'm listening to those bands. Jarrett's a dad. He's,
Mhm.
obviously Jarrett and I are many years apart. Well, Dan, you and I are like the same age.
True. I'm not yet a dad though, unless my
No,
girlfriend
you're not a
hasn't
dad
told
yet,
me
but
something.
but yeah,
That you know of. Yeah.
that you know of, right? All those crazy nights,
Yes.
I mean,
Well, my girlfriend hasn't told me something.
My wife will say this all the time. She'll just be like, "Are you sure you don't have any other kids? Like we're not going to get a knock on the door and like some kid flew in from Florida, and it's just like And I'm like, I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure."
I love that. We're pretty close at time, but I feel like, how do you want to leave off about people knowing about Music Networking 101? What do you want people to know about it? You kind of talked a little bit, you kind of teased a little bit about like maybe the future of it, some new things to come. Or is there any like last little sprinkle of advice that you would want to give to a band or any kind of creative, obviously, because I feel like there's just so many similarities, and it doesn't matter what type of art you're doing or what creative thing that you're creating. They're all so similar as far as the way you market
Mm.
Yeah.
them, and
I
kind of
feel like
network with each other.
with Music Networking 101, what we really want to do is to be able to give people a platform that they can come to, that they can get advice from other people in the industry. We get these keynote speakers and special guests who've got years and years of experience, in whichever area of the industry that is, whether that's as an artist, whether that's a band manager, a tour manager, a radio DJ. People who then are thinking about going into that career get a real, genuine insight of what working in that industry is like, and that's the pros and the cons, and then they get a very real world picture of it, because that kind of resource, when I was growing up especially, it just wasn't around, and we got ourselves into a lot of messes that we probably wouldn't have if something like Music Networking 101 had existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we were self-managed, through 2007. So, we definitely made a lot of mistakes, which is, how we learned. But, I think he explained Music Networking 101 perfectly. So I'll take the advice thing, as far as content is concerned. I actually heard a guy say this yesterday, and it made a lot of sense to me, because I think back to, many people probably don't know this, and especially the younger people that are listening, that Bowling for Soup was a band 9 years before we actually signed a record deal. And 9 years before we had a hit, basically. And so, we were in a van for 9 flipping years. So there's a lot of trial and error that goes along with that, and getting to that point of success and things. Well, the same thing is true with TikTok. If you're wanting to be a TikToker or a influencer or a YouTuber or whatever, and this guy was saying that he did 600 videos before he had his first viral video.
Wow.
600 videos.
That's a lot.
That's insane.
So, and he's a digital marketing coach now, so I believe him. I don't think that he's, you do 2, 3, 4 a day, and you've been on it since it started. I could see that, right?
Yeah.
So the point is just keep at it, find your niche, and I think the other thing that I can say is, you have to pay attention to trends, you have to pay attention to things like that, but be yourself, and you don't necessarily have to just copy somebody else, and but play the game and have fun, and that's the best advice that I can give is make sure you enjoy what you do because life is short.
I think that just
Exactly.
goes to show that there's all kinds of things that have changed over the years. Technology, maybe even the way we do business the way we do business a little bit changes. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the whole building up and putting that work in. It seems like that still is there. I feel like that's kind of what you painted a picture a little bit with Jaret, talking about, spending 9-10 years before you even had a hit, and then talking about this influencer, TikToker, or whatever, YouTuber, 600 videos, and then finally getting that, everything takes time. So.
Yeah, and a lot of work too. And I'm not one of these guys, like I love Dave Grohl and everything, but I think the whole get in the garage and pound it out thing is bullshit. I really do. Like I think, use the tools that you have, and just because this guy who had a SoundCloud hit didn't go in a van and tour around or didn't do it the way that other people do, he still put in the work. It just, he put it in a different way. And there's different avenues and things to ways to be successful, and, it's not MTV anymore. It's not, some people say radio is dead. I don't know, but I don't listen to it. I mean, I listen to podcasts and I stream music, but again, there's no right or wrong way to do it as long as you're putting in the work. And I guarantee you, it's like you look at, as I brought up Lil Nas X recently.
Yeah.
That dude works his ass off. And a lot of people, if you're not a fan of his and you only know the one song, he actually calls himself out in his music. And I know this because my kids listen to it, but he's like, look, I got in with a gimmick. And now I got gold records all over the place because, I found my way in, and now, I'm doing what I want to do, and it's working. And, that's something to be said for that. The guy figured it out,
Yeah. Yep. He found his window of opportunity and he jumped through it.
That dude's brilliant, by the way, man. Like it's crazy to. I do get exposure to like a lot of different kinds of music because my kids like what's popular. So like,
sure,
I am well versed in Lizzo and Lil Nas X and like all of these, all of the things that are popular these days. But
yeah,
again, you kind of can't argue. It's very seldom does somebody make it and you're not like, well, they fucking don't deserve it because shit, those people work just as hard as we do.
Yep. Absolutely.
The hustle is still there.
The hustle is still there. And whatever your approach is, it's like, I know we're running out of time, but I say to dads on the Rockstar Dad Show, your kid is like, hey, I want to be a gamer for a living. Well, that's an actual career.
Yeah.
And that's an actual thing that people can do. So tell them, well, if you're going to be a gamer, then fucking get in there and figure it out, because the last thing I can ever do is tell any kid that their dreams can't come true because mine did. Yeah. So my kid started out wanting to be, my 15-year-old wanted to be a gamer. Then he wanted to be a YouTuber. I set his room up, not crazy. I put some black shit on the walls and, made him a room to do that. Now he's learning French and he's decided that he's going to move to France and design cars. Fucking great.
Like you said, Jaret, life is too short and we only get one go around, so you might as well
do what you want to do.
Everything you want to do.
Oh man, that's such good advice because, I've lived 3 or 4 lifetimes, like I'm divorced and remarried. And like, I had a career before I owned my own business when I was a kid, so like, you can always restart, man. So just go after it. That's what I tell my kids all the time. Just like if you're 30 and want to start over, just fucking start over. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, you can always start over. I know it reminds me some of the things you were saying about your kids, Jarrett. Like my son, he's only 4, and he told me the other day he just wants to do everything.
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, cool.
we all
I
do.
was like,
Right?
yeah, right. It's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we do live those different lives within that one life. So
My
One-
dad used to play piano when he was like in his teens, and then he didn't for years and years and years because the reason he stopped is basically because he thought he was never going to be as good as his father. My grandfather, Ticker Freeman, was a pianist and composer, and the problem with that was that my dad constantly kind of compared himself to him, so he didn't touch the piano for years on end. But then recently, in his 70s, he is now, and he decided, you know what, I love playing piano. I don't know why I've just left it by all this time, and he started playing again, and he loves it. And it's, that speaks to that. I think it's never too late, ever.
that's fantastic. I love that. I'm glad your dad picked it up again.
Me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Danny Freeman, Jaret Reddick, Music Networking 101. Thank you guys to both of you for being back on the podcast. This was very fun and very informative.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for having us, man.
of course.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, Music Networking 101 is on Facebook now.
Yep.
That we will be available on all podcasts outlets just in the coming weeks. So if you're not doing the Facebook thing right now, just keep checking back, and we'll be out there soon.
Cool.
It'll all be there. And we've just got our new feature as well, where we'll now be having an extra monthly episode where we are going to be spotlighting 2 underground bands or artists, could be solo acts, and hopefully be able to shine a light on them in the scene.
awesome. Yeah, there's plenty to shine a light on, as you
Excited
both
about it.
Yeah.
So that list will never get short.
No.
All right. Anything else?
Well, you can, if you want to know what everything I'm up to, including this, I need to add this to my website, by the way, but it's just jaretreddick.com. And you can follow me everywhere at JARET2113, or I'm Jaret Reddick on TikTok.
Okay.
And I am at Danny Marty Freeman on pretty much every social in existence, I believe. I think so anyway. So you'll find out.
Danny got hacked like 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. The hacking with your Facebook. That was crazy.
Yeah.
My God, dude.
Such a pain in the ass.
Damn
Yeah.
Russians.
Really? Yeah.
Jokes.
Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, man.
Thank
You
very
too.
much.
Thank
Y'all be
you.
good.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
for
too.
having us.
Yep. All right, well, let's give both Jaret Reddick and Danny Freeman another round of applause. So great having both of them on. It's great catching up with them. I really think Music Networking 101 is definitely something the scene needs. It's a tool, it's a resource made by artists for artists. And I feel like even if you're not a musician, I feel like you can take away some really important points from them. Just as I mentioned earlier, no matter what type of creative thing you're currently creating, whether like it's this podcast, I feel like there's something I can take away from Music Networking 101 that I can apply to something I'm doing in the podcast world. Because at the end of the day, we're all creating content. You might be a person that just paints and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I sell my paintings? I want to make this a living. I want to make a living just painting for people. I feel like you could even find some very useful tips in that. So just something to think about. And that pretty much does it for this episode of Pop Punk and Pizza. I'm Jacques Lamour. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow, subscribe, like, all that stuff at Pop Punk Pizza Pod. is our social handle for everything: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And when you're at Apple Podcasts, please give us a positive rating and review. Or even if you don't give us a positive review, give us a review of some kind, because it actually does help in the long run. You can also go to poppunkpizzapod.com and sign up for our mailing list there. We've got merch and all that fun stuff as well. And you can find me on my Twitter is at Lamore Media if you want to follow me on Twitter there. So, and we do have a Facebook group. I forgot to mention that. There's the Pop Punk and Pizza Podcast Facebook group. Join us there for anything podcast related that you want to talk about. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. And until next time.
Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza. Hey, hello, it's nice